Good day, everyone. Justin here. In our last lesson, we got to explore the Gilded Age, an age of unprecedented economic growth and inequality. An age that set the stage with its massive protests and strikes, leading to the first major expansion of the federal bureaucracy. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to analyze the growth of the federal bureaucracy in the 20th and 21st century and evaluate its impact on American society. Today, we're going to complete our journey, but we need to start with a quick review. So, let's do it. The Gilded Age was a period of rapid industrialization, leading to the growth of large, powerful corporations that became monopolies. These monopolies controlled the economic processes and influenced the overall social and political culture in America. Keep in mind, this was a time of social turmoil. Remember the Haymarket riot? And because of all this chaos, a number of laws were pushed through Congress in order to deal with the issues of industrialization. First, Congress passed the Interstate Commerce Act, which created the Interstate Commerce Commission. The Interstate Commerce Commission is an early federal bureaucratic commission in charge of monitoring abuses in the railroad industry. Second, in 1890, President Benjamin Harrison signed the Sherman Antitrust Act. This act gave the executive branch the power to look into monopolistic business practices. This leads us right into the Progressive Era and that trust-busting, nature-loving, wild man president, Teddy Roosevelt. Word alert! A trust is a large grouping of business interests with significant market power. Trust busting means government activities seeking to dissolve corporate trusts and monopolies. For now, we do not need to jump forward in time, but rather back out into the streets of Milwaukee. As we're, flying through space-time, let's go over some background information that you need to know. The Gilded Age ended with the breakup of the massive monopolies that had enabled the rapid industrialization and innovation that had radically altered American life. It also ended with a radical turn in political culture. Historically, Americans had seen the federal government and the presidency specifically as a limited body with narrow purposes. Trust busting had signaled a new era, the Progressive Era. Through the Interstate Commerce Commission and Sherman Antitrust Act, the executive branch's economic role dramatically increased as people saw the president's office as the main agent for change. Theodore Roosevelt, Republican president from 1901 to 1909, became known as a trust buster because he dedicated himself to controlling corporate America. In 1912, Teddy Roosevelt founded the Bull Moose Party in order to run for president against his former Republican Party, which he considered to be too closely aligned with business interests. We step out of the time machine and see a robust man with circular glasses giving a heated speech to an eager audience. We walk up to hear his opening comments and are blown away to hear that the man has been shot, but will still be giving a speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose.
Whoa, this guy is tough. And he proved his toughness not just physically as president, but also strategically and politically. Let's keep listening to find out how the federal bureaucracy was used to control industry.
When I took the office, the antitrust law was practically a dead letter and the interstate commerce law in as poor a condition. I had to revive both laws. I did. I enforced both.
That's him talking about trust busting. Let's keep listening.
I found speedily that the interstate commerce law, by being made perfect, could be made a most useful instrument for helping solve some of our industrial problems. So with the antitrust law, I speedily found out that almost the only positive good achieved by such a successful lawsuit as the Northern Security suit, for instance, was in establishing the principle that the government was supreme over the big corporation.
And that's precisely what he did. In 1906, under the Sherman Antitrust Act, the federal government sued Standard Oil. And the result was that Standard Oil was broken up into 34 separate companies. You go, Teddy. With that, let's get back to the time machine for a Show What You Know. Please write down the answers to these questions in your notebook. What signaled the Progressive Era? How did Teddy Roosevelt increase the scope of the federal bureaucracy? Let's see how Milwaukee looks 25 years from now. On the way, let's get the lowdown on what things were like in 1936. The current US president is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, otherwise known as FDR. The Great Depression just hit America in 1929 when the stock market crashed. This resulted in a general economic depression across all industries, resulting in massive unemployment. To help combat this, a huge legislative agenda called the New Deal was proposed by the FDR administration throughout the 1930s. Let's hop out so we can learn more. We see a long line of unemployed Americans waiting in front of a building. A sign on the building says, "Free soup, coffee, and donuts for the unemployed." We continue our walk and see a crowd seated around a store window, listening to a man speak through a new radio. It's the president, FDR, in one of his famous fireside chats. He says,
"Tomorrow is Labor Day. The brave spirit with which so many millions of working people are winning their way out of depression deserves respect and admiration."
You hear some murmurs of agreement from the crowd. A well-dressed man standing near you says,
"Relief today could lead to tyranny tomorrow."
You watch as that man scoffs and walks away. Let's keep listening.
Reemployment in industry is proceeding rapidly. Government spending was in large part responsible for keeping industry going and putting it in a position to make this reemployment possible. In 1933, the United States Employment Service was created, a cooperative state and federal enterprise through which the federal government matches dollar for dollar the funds provided by the states for registering the occupations and skill of workers and for actually finding jobs for these registered workers in private industry. We have developed a nationwide service with 700 district offices and 1,000 branch offices, thus providing facilities through which labor can learn of jobs available and employers can find workers.
Someone in the crowd says,
Finally, a president that works for us, not just industry.
Seems like the average American is looking towards the executive branch not just for relief from the Depression, but also for a change of direction in America. More and more, it's clear that a federal bureaucracy is becoming a permanent feature of the American government. With that, let's head back to the time machine for a Show What You Know. Grab a pen and paper, please. What major issue was the nation facing in the 1930s? According to FDR, how did the federal government respond to this issue? How did this response impact the average American's expectations for the executive branch, and thus the federal bureaucracy? Maybe you're not grasping how crazy important this shift was for America going forward. I mean, if you recall, the framers originally intended for Congress to be the primary point of political power and political life in the US. I mean, they wrote it right in the first article of the Constitution. They gave Congress investigative power, legislative power, military power, and of course, the almighty power of the purse. But FDR signaled a turning point for the way the American people viewed the presidency. So with that, Let's take our time machine back into the future and think about some of the things that have changed between FDR's time and ours. First, the federal government became a regular and fixed influence in daily American life through New Deal programs. This insertion of federal power into daily life would be renewed in President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society. Secondly, the federal government became normalized as the rulemaker for industry rather than state governments. This rulemaking power would be brought back during President Nixon's terms as president with the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. And third, the labor movement became decriminalized because labor was now a large part of the federal government. In fact, a whole department was dedicated to labor, the Department of Labor. Within this department, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration would be created. And under this administration, work safety standards were solidified and minimum wage laws took root. All of this labor reform resulted in the creation of a robust blue-collar workforce and the expansion of the middle class. As the decades have gone by, many Americans have come to view the presidency as the main source of all problems and solutions in America's government. The evidence of this central focus on the presidency is revealed by the small voter turnout seen in midterm elections, the elections that put representatives in the House and Senate. According to voting data, only about 40% of eligible voters participate in midterm elections, compared to around 60% in presidential elections. Many Americans have come to accept that the federal government's role in our lives and in areas that were, historically, supposed to be left for the states, has grown to massive proportions. Some examples of federal reach are in education, with the introduction and implementation of Common Core standards in schools, in housing policy, as seen in the federal housing program known as Freddie and Fannie Mae, and in the proposed voter reform legislation pushed by the Biden administration in 2022. There are many reasons for why the federal bureaucracy continued to grow over the course of the few decades of the 21st century. Take the war on terrorism, for instance. After 9/11, the fear and uncertainty felt by Americans when the Twin Towers fell compelled the U.S. Congress to pass the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act severely limits constitutional protections of legal rights and rights to privacy by granting different federal agencies greater investigative powers and larger federal budgets. Edward Snowden, a national security agent working inside the federal government, revealed just how invasive some of these surveillance programs had become when he released between 9,000 and 10,000 documents in 2013. These documents showed that the U.S. had a mass surveillance program which kept track of not just criminals, but of everyday Americans. Before we recap, we need you to show what you know. We have the big final question here for you to wrap your head around. How has the growth of the federal bureaucracy in the 20th and 21st century impacted American life? For more information to help you answer this, take a look at that PDF. Recap time! Today we learned, in the Progressive Era, trust busting signaled a larger federal bureaucratic role in the commercial activities of America. The New Deal signaled a larger federal bureaucratic role in the daily lives of Americans. After World War II, presidents built upon these earlier precedents through continued executive actions through the federal bureaucracy. Today, numerous issues, both foreign and domestic, seem to justify an ever-increasing federal bureaucratic presence in American society. And that's all for us today. We hope you enjoyed our little journey through time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, remember, vote, debate, and participate.
Hey!